Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a region that, well, for centuries was the very definition of an impenetrable frozen barrier. We're talking about the Arctic, but it's now rapidly becoming a burgeoning global highway. The sources we've reviewed provide a sharp focus on the technology, the incredible vessels, and, you know, the high-stakes global competition surrounding these new shipping routes, especially the Northern Sea Route, or NSR.
And our mission for this deep dive is pretty clear. We're extracting what this massive climate-driven shift really means for global trade. And this isn't just about saving a few days at sea. It's about looking at why this is such a critical strategic opportunity for Pacific nations, particularly for a country like Korea. We have to get a handle on both the intense engineering challenges and the very complex geopolitics that the melting ice is suddenly laying bare.
Okay, let's unpack this, and I think we have to start with the how. I mean, when you see footage of these massive ships just forging a path through meters of thick polar ice, the first question is just how? What's the engineering, the physics behind an icebreaker?
Well, what's so fascinating here is the common misconception. Most people think these ships just crash head on through the ice, like a giant battering ram.
Right, exactly. Brute force.
While there is brute force involved, yes, the basic principle is far more elegant. It's a technique called the ride-up.
The ride-up.
Exactly. If you look at a foundational vessel, something like the Canadian Louis S., it's got decades of experience. An icebreaker uses a sleek, sloping bow, but not to punch through horizontally. It uses it to actually ride up onto the ice sheet. And then it uses the ship's own colossal weight to crush the ice from above. It's gravity doing most of the work.
That sounds incredibly dangerous, though. I mean, if you're constantly trying to climb onto an ice sheet, what stops the entire 10,000-ton ship from just running aground on the ice?
That's the counterintuitive part of the design. The underside of the bow has this very specific, complex vertical angle built into it, and that angle acts as a kind of structural brake. It makes sure the ship climbs just enough to apply that crushing weight, but not so much that it, beaches itself and gets trapped. It's a really delicate, high-power balancing act.
And I imagine that act requires continuous, just immense power. You're talking about ships moving at low speeds, but needing this extremely high sustained output to overcome that constant resistance.
The power demands are astronomical. A typical cargo ship is efficient at high speed. An icebreaker is the opposite. It has to be efficient at low speed under immense stress. That's why they have multiple high-output engines. The power-to-weight ratio is just off the charts compared to a standard commercial vessel. You're essentially just turning fuel into continuous torque, moment by moment.
So to make sure that design actually works in the real world, the testing has to be just as rigorous. The research we saw described these specialized model ice basins, long pools of water frozen over 24 hours to just 3 centimeters thick.
And they treat that 3 centimeters like it's a 100-foot ice sheet. It's incredible. Researchers go to painstaking lengths to verify that this model ice accurately reflects material properties, the strength, the elasticity of natural sea ice. They can even simulate specific regions, like the conditions off northern Japan. Then they test these little model ships, maybe 125th the size of the real thing.
And what are they looking for in those tests?
Everything. Hull stability, making sure that bow angle is perfect for crushing, and critically, that the broken ice fragments disperse sideways.
Sideways. Why is that so important?
Because if the broken ice, what they call ice rubble, piles up under the hull, it can actually stop a ship even more effectively than a solid sheet. The fragments have to be pushed away to the sides.
That level of detail really explains why nations realized they couldn't just rely on foreign ships. This is the whole background to Korea's vessel, the Aranon, isn't it? The source material we looked at was really clear on this. The vulnerability of having a Russian lease canceled 3 months out, forcing them to basically beg China for help from their ship, the Xu Long, just to service their own research stations.
Absolutely. The Arion was born out of that necessity, to secure autonomous, sovereign access to the poles. And it's a whole new generation of research vessel. I mean, take the hull. It uses steel plates around 40 millimeters thick. That's more than double the less than 20 millimeters on a standard ship.
Is that extra thickness just for the crushing power, or is it for something else?
It's primarily protection against impacts from what's called multi-year ice. This is ice that's been frozen for years. It's incredibly dense, and it moves in these huge, unpredictable flows. Those 40-millimeter plates are designed to withstand those high impacts in temperatures down to, say, negative 40 degrees Celsius. Standard steel would become brittle and fail. And they have to keep the ship operational, too. So there are heat wires in the windows, the doors, even the decks to stop everything from freezing solid.
And this is where the tech really jumps ahead of the older vessels, right? The
Yeah.
propulsion. The Aerolthon has an electric propulsion system generating a massive 16,800 horsepower. That's 3 times the output of a comparable general vessel.
And that electric system is the game changer for navigating ice. A diesel engine gives you powerful, continuous output, sure, but it struggles with responsiveness, especially when you're trying to break free. If you slow down too much, a diesel engine takes time to spool back up to full power.
Wait, why is that? Is it about recovery speed when you get stuck, or is it just about brute force?
It's the torque profile. Electric motors provide instantaneous, powerful torque the second you need it. That lets the captain recover from a near stall condition almost instantly. That rapid power is everything in heavy ice. And the system allows for smooth variable speed, instant forward reverse, lateral shifting, even 360-degree rotation. All of that is non-negotiable in tight ice channels.
It really is a marvel. But it's not just a breaker, is it? It's a floating laboratory. It has something like 60 types of research gear and more than 10 dedicated labs.
And it has capabilities you'd normally only see on military vessels. For instance, the Dynamic Positioning System, the DPS. It's an automated system that holds the ship at its exact latitude and longitude, 247, no matter the wind or currents. That is crucial for collecting precise data samples.
But what happens when it does get stuck? Because even with all that power, polar ice can be totally unpredictable.
That's where the ice healing system comes in. It's a critical escape feature. If the ship gets caught in what they grimly call an ice prison, the system activates. It literally shapes the entire hull side to side to break the bond with the surrounding ice, allowing the ship to power free. It's the ultimate insurance policy.
The ship's survey capability also points directly to the commercial stakes here. They have a multi-channel sonar, a device valued at 2.7 billion Korean won that maps the seafloor in 3D.
And the penetration depth is what makes this so consequential. This sonar can see through ground structures up to 10 kilometers deep. That's not just for mapping. It means they can effectively find geological oil and gas reserves and other mineral resources without drilling. It fundamentally changes the resource game in the Arctic.
And on top of that, there's the Hemi ROV, an unmanned sub that can go down to 6,000 meters. That gives them access to survey, 98% of the world's oceans? So we have the tech to break the ice and the tools to study what's underneath, which brings us to the huge commercial prize, the Northern Sea Route itself.
Exactly. The Arctic route, specifically the NSR along Russia's coast, is being called the Golden Route. It dramatically shortens the traditional Asia-Europe trade path that has always relied on the Suez Canal.
Let's quantify that saving, because that's where the real economic argument is. Sailing from, say, Busan in Korea to Rotterdam in Europe is cut by roughly 7,000 kilometers.
And to give you a sense of scale, 7,000 kilometers is like driving from Lisbon, Portugal, all the way across Europe to Moscow. That kind of reduction cuts the distance by 30 to 40%. It saves 10 to 14 days of sailing time. And crucially, it can cut fuel costs by 30%. For an export-driven economy, that is a historic advantage.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the melting ice isn't just revealing shipping lanes, it's revealing this intense strategic competition among global powers.
That's the core tension, absolutely. Russia controls over half the Arctic coastline and claims jurisdiction over the NSR. They're the only country with nuclear-powered icebreakers like the Tamir. And they are very focused on controlling and monetizing this route, collecting significant fees. They see it as their internal waters.
And you have this immense challenge from China. They're not just watching. They've declared their own Ice Silk Road.
China is being extremely aggressive. They want to dominate future trade by securing supply chain control. They've already launched the China-Europe Arctic Express container service. And meanwhile, the U.S. is heavily invested, focusing on military access and resource dominance and, framing its policy in terms of competition with both Russia and China.
The sheer size of this opportunity and the speed it's all happening is why the sources we looked at are framing this as a potential national destiny moment for a country like Korea. Why that specific phrase?
Because for centuries, Korea has been geographically on the periphery of major global trade routes. It's at the end of the line. The NSR changes that overnight. It offers the first chance for the nation to be on a central global artery. But that window to secure access is incredibly limited.
And it's accelerating so fast. The research shows that shipping incidents on the route ships actually using it jumped 15 times between 2009 and 2013 alone. That pace is just staggering.
The challenge isn't just navigating the ice, it's navigating the clock. The real goal is to secure the long-term contracts, the infrastructure, before the major competitors solidify their control. I mean, we're talking about logistical commitments that could last for 50, even 100 years. This race is happening right now.
So this all leads directly to Korea's strategy,
Hmm.
the battle to become the regional hub. The national ambition is to make sure a southern port, like Busan or Jinhae, becomes the main transshipment point, consolidating all the cargo from Southeast Asia and China before it heads north.
And the main competition there is Busan versus Shanghai. Now, Shanghai has more overall cargo capacity, but Busan is already the world's #2 transshipment port. And interestingly, the experts point to a geopolitical advantage for Korea, a potential desire from allies like the US and Japan to prevent China from becoming the single dominant hub. That tension actually gives Busan a unique lift.
And the government seems to be backing this with serious commitment. President Lee Jae-myung is actively pushing the Arctic agenda. They're even relocating the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries from the capital down to Busan as a very visible sign of commitment.
And they're backing it with money. The government has earmarked an $8 million subsidy for every ice-class vessel built for the route. Looking forward, they're planning a second-generation LNG-fueled icebreaker for 2029. It's designed to be one of the world's largest, but also to have minimal air pollution.
They're focusing on Busan, Yeosu, and Gwangyang, with the local Gangnam province pushing really hard for the Jinhae Newport as the optimal hub because of its scale.
But this raises a really important question, doesn't it? Given Russia's tight control over the NSR and the current geopolitical climate, how does Korea actually navigate that politically charged relationship?
That's the tightrope they have to walk. The sources we reviewed suggest Russia actually views Korea favorably, mostly because of economic complementarity.
Right. Korea needs energy, Russia needs consumer goods and investment.
Exactly. And crucially, unlike the complex territorial issues Russia has with Japan and China, there's just no real history of conflict with Korea.
That political and economic alignment is a critical advantage. But the practical challenges, they're still there, especially when it comes to human resources. You need highly specialized people, ice pilots, who are often trained at places like Russia's Makarov Maritime Academy. So Korea needs to build that expertise, and fast.
But this is where Korea has a very strong card to play. It's the technology edge. Its advanced shipbuilding is something that other nations, even Russia, have to rely on. The fact that Korean shipyards built 15 huge ice-breaking LNG carriers for Russia's key Yamal project, well, that makes Korea an indispensable partner.
So that technology gives them leverage, regardless of any wider geopolitical friction. I think the core takeaway from this deep dive is that the climate crisis has, sort of unintentionally, created this profound, time-sensitive last chance for a country like Korea. An opportunity to fundamentally redefine its global position, moving from the edge of global trade right to the center. The time savings, the efficiency, it's all very real. But that race to become the hub is unfolding right now.
We've seen the powerful mechanics of the Ryder Principle, the cutting-edge technology of the Ariane, and the enormous strategic stakes of the Northern Sea Route. The experts all stress this need for rapid, decisive action, and they note that commercial viability could become a reality much sooner than many people think. So here's a final thought for you to consider. If this new global trade route opens up sooner than expected, as all this activity suggests, what specific non-technological preparations, what political agreements, human resource strategies, or industrial alliances must happen today to ensure that Korea and its chosen port of Busan doesn't miss this singular historical opportunity?